I think we should kind of set the context. Give me a second, okay? And just one more activity. I will start the live streaming on Facebook.
So for the participants, those who would come late or those who would like to review the topics, okay, so they can rewatch it on Facebook. And I'm pretty sure we're going to upload this also on our YouTube channel, right? So we have started the AsiaHRM YouTube channel.
We'll do that. Yeah.
So I think we can start now. So we start our recording.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Asia HRM, another monthly sharing session for this month. Okay, my name is Marie. I'm a member of a core committee of Asia HRM since 2018. So I'm happy to be with you again today for another great sharing session. We have a very interesting topic about the cross cultural management, and we invite Mr. Vishaal Sharma. Okay, so who would give us a lot of interesting takeaways at the end of the session. So to start with, I would like to introduce for those who doesn't know about Asia HRM. So Asia HRM is a community of HR professional in Asia. So we share to care, we care to share. So every month we have a lot of different activities that we provide to the HR community in Asia. We have Avin here. He's currently in Singapore. Foster from Hong Kong, and Jacker from Bangladesh, and our founder, who is unfortunately she would be late. For now, she has other important things to attend to, but she will be here later. Miss Rita Choi. Okay. We are doing a lot of monthly sharing sessions. So like this one, every once a month, we have a book club headed by Mr. Foster from Hong Kong. So book club is scheduled Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So those who would like to join the book club, you can reach to Mr. Avin or to Mr. Foster. You can just feel free to write on the chat box. So if you would like to join the book club, very interesting book club. And then we are also providing mentoring session, coaching, and um, currently upcoming we have an OKR certification, which we cooperate with Pitbots. So those who would like to be certified on OKR, so please connect with Carmen. Carmen will send you all the details. So she's also in this session, so you can just send um, a PM to Carmen on the chat box. And also we have our pagebook page, Asia HRM, and then we have our website. Visit our website at www.asiahrm.com. And also we are going to launch a YouTube channel, whereas we're going to have interesting topics about HR, and all the things you need to know about human resources. So because in Asia HRM, we share to care, we care to share. So, and for that also, I would like to thank Mr. Rashidul and Mr. Tabsir from Bangladesh FMCG HR Society for promoting and this webinar in Bangladesh. Okay. So again, now thank you very much. So I will introduce our esteemed guest speaker today, Mr. Vishaal Sharma. So he's a senior vice president and head HR in Southeast Asia with Aditya Birla Chemicals in Thailand Limited, a part of the Aditya Birla Group, which is a 50 billion US dollar conglomerate company. So he has an extensive experience in working with different cultures and has driven many initiatives across Asia, MENA, Europe, and also he has a very extensive experience in working with different cultures and has driven many initiatives. So without further ado, okay, I will give you Mr. Vishal.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for inviting me. for a sharing on cross-cultural management. Uh, so this is the topic. Sometimes I feel that is more mystery sometimes than what it is, and the way some of the literature which is present today, cross-cultural management has become more mysterious than what it should be. Okay, uh, and I'm not taking away the required detail which we should focus on when we talk about cross-cultural management. So basically, till the time we are in our own country, we don't need to understand cross-cultural what happens, what is this all about, and also the communication, which is I would say one of the uh, m- very important pillars of cross-cultural communication. We don't have to worry about, because most of the communication will be implicit when we are in our own country. So let's say I am from Bangladesh, Jakar and I. So by some of the body language, some of the head down, head sideways movement, Jakar will understand me and I will understand Jakar. So there is no question of any direct communication most of the time. Changes happen when we move to a different country or we are required to work with people from different countries. So for me, I take communication, decision making, group working, and personal versus professional, these four areas very seriously when we talk about cross cultural management. Now, let's say I'll give an example. I'll keep giving examples so that many of the cultures have evolved over a period of thousands of years. Okay, some are very recent, and over a period of time, it has happened so that people tend to believe that my culture is the best culture. So there is nothing wrong. But what happens is when you go into different country and you realize somebody also is saying the same thing, that my culture is the best culture. So where is this best coming from? Okay, and when we look at culture, we are talking about some of the behaviors. Okay, the complication is that those behaviors, let's say you are talking to a US person. Now, when you're talking to somebody from US, you will hear a lot of talk, okay, glorifying words and so on and so forth. But what actually happens in reality, uh, so I'll give an example. Many years back, a US guy was talking to me and he was using all kinds of right words, and I was floored. I said, "This is my guy, he's my friend." And after a few days, he almost, I felt betrayed because the email he wrote to me was very rude. Okay. So I was wondering, this gentleman was so nice to me, and he was like, "You are like a family," and so on and so forth. So that was the awakening for me that, what means, what they have to say and what they do, these are two different things. So what we talk about in cross-cultural setting, for example, when I came to Thailand, it was very important for me to understand that what is happening in Thailand. What are the norms, some of the norms of Thai people, where they follow in their working life or they follow in their personal life. And how do I align to those norms? But the bigger challenge was that I have a company norm and I have Thai people, their country norm, their own personal norm. So, how do I make sure that my company norms are established? Also, I do not disturb their own working norm, their culture norm, and their country norm. So, this is the challenge. The second part is when we talk about culture, and especially when we are moving to a different country, we the moment we start talking, we start realizing the difference between us versus them. Okay, management literature, if you see, and lots of research which has been done, they talk about bridging the gap between us and them, so that there is no situation where you are on one side and the others are on the other side. With the local people on the other side, you are on one side. So that literature, I don't doubt the the credibility of that literature, but the whole attempt to create a single unified group where there is no us, there is no them, is futile. Because when you make those attempts, you will tread into territories which are not called for. So the best thing is you realize those differences and find a common ground. Okay. So common ground, again, what kind of communication strategy we will have? What kind of norms will be there for team working? Okay. How we are going to make decisions. Okay. And when I talk about personal versus professional, for me, work is an extension of my personal life, or work is work and my personal life is personal life. On those four parameters, if I decide that I will work out a common ground of working together, then I will not have much problem. The problem happens when we become very over ambitious and we try to achieve so much of cultural integration, so to say, in a very short span of time. So we are trying to dilute the force of the nature, because they have been developed some of the behaviors for many years, and we are saying we will go through a training program and we will be culturally aligned to other countries' culture. It's not going to happen. So for me, it's all about arriving at basic minimum agenda of working together, and these 4 5 areas, I think that sets the tone for a good cross-cultural management.
Thank you, Mr. Vishal, for giving
Yeah.
us what is a cross-cultural management. So I just want to have a recap. So in a cross-cultural management, behavior, communications, culture, finding a common ground, attempt to create a single unit of communication or group are the essentials in order for us to really put ourselves in the ground in a country. Like myself living in Cambodia, so for me, I can add one, which is adaptation. So the ability to adapt. So I have a question though. So since we are an HR community, so I would like to know why is it important for HR manager, especially for those who intend to take up regional role, to understand a cross-cultural management?
So either you are in your country working with colleagues from other nationalities, or you move to a different country as a HR person and start working with them, right? So these are the two situations where HR folks need to understand the and appreciate the culture of other countries. And why they need to do is, as I said, what is that you are trying to achieve? Okay, by going to a different country, you are trying to gain some experience. You are trying to help some decision making, and also as an HR person, you are trying to make people more employable, and trying to create learning platforms for them. Now, you cannot do that unless you understand the certain norms. Okay. And I'm sure many of you have heard the typical way of expressing, saying that in my company, this is how things happen.
Yes, it's
Okay.
true. Every time.
Right.
So
So no, what is that they're talking about? It's a very simple statement saying that in my company, this is the way things happen. But beneath that statement, there are many things which are coming together. Okay. For example, when I talk about my company, Aditya Birla Group, okay, We say that, we are a manufacturing powerhouse. Okay. So anything happens in manufacturing should happen before at Aditya Birla Group, because we believe that we are a manufacturing powerhouse. You go to Facebook, for them, data is everything, because they want to make decision based on data. Okay. That is the norm of an organization, informal norm, but that's how the decision making flows. Similarly, when an HR person joins another country and a different company altogether, I think you will be better off by understanding, first of all, how decisions are made. Okay. Whether it is flowing from top, or there is a consensus, or you have that risk taking capability, you can take a risk and take a decision. Okay. The failure is not punished. The second is, what is the success factor if you want to be successful in this organization, this country? What are those 2 3 success factors? Okay. Now if you understand those success factors, then you follow that. Okay. And then your chances of going wrong will be very, very minimal. And also on the same side, when you see that these are the reasons of failure of many people, you please avoid them like a plague. Okay. So that is one area as HR person you should know. And also, you should be very, very skillful in understanding what is the team dynamics there. Okay. Some cultures, for example, Russia. When I used to visit Russia a few years back, you know what they used to do? I will credit the salary, and there'll be huge, queue outside ATM, and they will withdraw every single ruble. So I used to wonder why they are withdrawing every single ruble. Then I started asking people, and the answer which I got, that they don't trust their banking system. And why they don't trust their banking system? Because many failures happened many times. So they have stopped trusting their banking system. That's why they remove every ruble. So that was a learning for me, and also it created some pressure, that what happens to their retirement if they don't save. Okay. The similar challenge I faced here in Thailand, where people don't want to save.
Actually, that is my next question, because I believe you've been working in Thailand for quite some time now.
Yes.
So, working in Thailand, living in Thailand for quite some time, gave you the authority to really understand the culture, and this culture, this understanding, the understanding affects how you make your decision in terms of management, right? Can you
Yeah.
tell us about this? Can
Yeah.
you share us?
Okay. So Thai culture is very compliance driven. Okay. Very hierarchical culture. Very hierarchical. And the typical, where I had my first learning is, I came here and I believed that everybody is like me. Okay. And I started, multitasking, so much of pressure on me, which was getting extended to my local team. Now, Thai culture is very clear about their personal life, their work life. Okay. And for me, my personal life was an extension of my work life. That created a bit of a conflict, because here multitasking nobody does, because Thai people are very creative. They want to do one thing at a time, and they will give you the best of the products or services or process. But the moment you ask them to do multitasking, that's where they will start making mistakes, or they will not understand what I'm trying to say. The second is, many of the Thai people are very good at understanding English, but my accent was not helping. Okay. And their accent was not helping me. I'm talking about English language. So when I came here, I was asking my real estate agent, what is the number of my building reception? She started saying something and I could not understand. And she got so angry at me. I could see her body language changing, as though she wanted to hit me with the phone. Okay. And then she took my hand and dragged me to the phone instrument and said, "This is zero." Now, for me, I could never understood that zero is pronounced as zero. R is pronounced as L. Okay. Now, that was the first learning and very rude learning I had, that I have to learn some of the pronunciation here in Thailand. And this is something very common because they speak English, but the pronunciation, they will never pronounce X. Okay. There's cool, cool. So you have to get tuned to those nuances, if you want to understand. And if you want any process to be followed to the T, give it to Thai people. They will execute in a clinical precision fashion. And if you want to involve them in any creative work, okay, they're the best people to go to. So these are some of the learnings I had while, and if I were to compare, let's say, analytical abilities versus empathy, okay, they are not a strict comparison, but Thai people are very high on empathy, very high on empathy. So if you want to be successful in Thailand, okay, try and be very high on empathy, understand where they come from, understand their perspective, and don't make them lose their face in meetings. Raising your voice is absolutely not allowed, because they understand that if you're not happy, without raising your voice, you can make them understand that things have not really gone right. So this was my learning while in Thailand. And I also, you need to prioritize your communication. The moment you give them three set of instructions, things will go wrong or likely to go wrong. At one time, you give them one instruction, absolute flawless. So the way you perceive yourself, they don't perceive you the same way.
Yeah, it's actually very true, right? Because having experienced it myself, so you really have to immerse into the culture in order for you to understand them. Just like the same experience I had when I first arrived in Cambodia. So people like 10 to 5 o'clock, it's go home. So they're not supposed to do any job after that. But then later you realize that, so this is the way they do things here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to follow it, right? So it's a matter of your judgment, your own judgment. You immerse yourself into good or you immerse yourself into bad. And
Right,
I think another thing would be in a cross cultural management, whereas individualism is being given value, right? So it means that a person's individuality, okay, um you have your own perception, but at the same time you don't lose your individuality. At the same time, you're able to adapt into the um their management styles, right? Because sometimes we tend to lose ourselves, okay? So instead of us bringing good change, okay, we end up, we are the one being changed according to their norms, right? Like I remember what you said in the beginning, right? Some companies or some employees, when you're new, you arrive and then they will tell you, this is the way we do it, right? Why do you have to change it? We're doing it the same as it. So people are expecting you to do the same, right? So I think, like for example, there are some cultures, we are a very diverse culture. Like currently now we have from Singapore, we have from Cambodia, Bangladesh, so we have from Philippines, so Hong Kong. We have a diverse culture, and each of us believes that each of us have our own individuality, and each of us believe that we are the best, okay, just like what Singapore say, we are the best, right, Avin? Okay, same thing with being a Filipino, right? Filipino, we have this mentality that we are the best. So I think it comes in with all the nationality, because how you pride yourself being a person or being at your own culture.
right. So, Mary, you raise very important point. There is no good or bad culture. Okay, uh, in an organization setup, when we say that I have the best culture, okay, we are referring to certain behaviors. Okay, and what are those behaviors? For example, my company is obsessed with customer service. Okay, that's a behavior which every employee shows day in day out. Now what is a bad behavior? That employees who do not think that customer care or customer centricity is a good idea. That's a bad behavior. Okay, now there are organizations who will appreciate these good behaviors where they say that we are obsessed about customers. Okay, any employee who's not obsessed about customer will be, taken out from the system. So that is a example of saying that best culture. Okay, now some organization, and I will extrapolate some countries, they said that we are a fair organization. Okay, or we are a very meritocratic organization where everything is by merit. But then suddenly you see that merit is not there in some of the decisions. Okay, now that's where your culture is gone for a toss. It's not a best culture you have as a country or as a company, because every day you will make thousands of decisions. Every decision is fair, but one decision which you make which is not fair or not perceived fair by your employees or stakeholders, your culture is gone.
Actually, that's what I want to ask. That's what I want to know because sometimes management decision are being influenced by the person's nationality or by the person's affiliations or culture, right? And it's a common how to say norms in different countries, whereas like for example we Asian, okay, we tend to get discriminated because of our nationality. Okay, so if you compare, okay, with other nationality, both can do the work the same level, maybe better than, but we end up being discriminated. We Asians are being discriminated. That's why there's a lot of racism going on. I don't want to touch about that topic because it's a very, very um, sensitive topic. But in terms of decision making with regards to that, so how would you deal or making the decision considering the different culture of your employees?
Yeah, I think sense of transparency, okay, will help if we are making a decision. There are two types of decisions, in this context, which is basically day-to-day decisions which do not impact majority of the employees. Okay, the second one is the decisions which will impact majority of the employees. Now, when I talk about decision making in this kind of setup, I will be concerned about the second level of decision where the most of the employees will be impacted and how those decisions are being made. If there is no transparency in terms of how decisions are being made, then the host country or the home country, depending upon the situation, you will feel that you have been discriminated. Now, many organizations, when they go to X country, let's say a US company going to, for example, my country, okay, they bring their decision making process to India. But that decision making process is not going to work in India. You need to tweak a little or modify a little bit. Okay? Problem happens when you don't do it and you expect your Indian organization will follow the same norm. And what is happening is it will lead to us versus them situation if you do not explain or be transparent about it. Second, you do not modify your decision making process. So somewhere those norms you have to establish very early. The decision making would be 60% as per my organization headquarters, 40% I will have local element. What decisions I will make at local level, what decisions I'll make at headquarters. So if you set up those norms very early, okay, the nationalist jingoism, so to say, will come into picture when you don't clarify those things. Because in absence of clarity, people will think that you are against their country, against their race, and against their organization.
Yeah,
Never
that
do
is
that.
very true. Yeah, totally agree with you because sometimes, like for example, if people like me here in Cambodia, right? So being here for almost 13 years, so I learn the culture, how the people works and everything. So if someone come and ask me, "Can I go to Cambodia?" I said, "You have the right to go to Cambodia. I cannot stop you, right? But you have to be ready to ensure that before coming here you know how to respect the culture of the country. You don't come here and insist, no, we do it in the Philippines, so it must be done in Cambodia, right? So the same thing in any company, right? You have to really check and balance, right?
Yes.
um Another
Harry,
thing
I
I
have
would
one
like to.
question.
Yeah, Tafsir.
Yeah, just I was thinking about a particular point regarding how can we, if an HR professional wants to take a KPI of making a diversity and inclusion culture in his organization, then in the action plan, what should be the elements? Like,
First element, Tafsir, which I'm a biggest, one of the biggest proponent is, please run the debiasing program before you get into diversity and inclusion. See, diversity and inclusion is the outcome of something, Tafsir. Okay, and unless you tell people, and I'm sorry, I have seen this bias more in women than in men. Okay, that's my personal experience. I may be wrong. Please debias, run those programs for as long as you can, create case studies, and sensitize the whole organization about what are you trying to do. Okay, then you start with your diversity and inclusion program. Define what is diversity for you, what is inclusion for you, because sometimes you will be shocked to know that for inclusion what you believe, okay, your top management, that's not the inclusion, that's not the diversity. Okay, and I can also give you a cultural element, Tapsir, from the part you come and I come. Okay, if I say that inclusion means bringing LGBT community also, okay, what happens? What kind of reaction you get from your top management? So you need to very clearly define what is that you are trying to do, diversity, and when you say diversity and inclusion, are you a meritocrat organization, or you are a stock market organization? Now, stock market organization is, oh, I'm increasing my diversity in my board, in my top leadership, let's say 30%. So you can hire anybody. So you have achieved your stock market goal, but you have not achieved your meritocratic goal, which will hurt you long term. Okay. So, and there is no need to be ambitious stuff here. You have to go very cautiously, very slow, because these changes are painful to begin with. It's not easy. And in a male dominated society that you come from and I come from, okay, it is never going to be easy. So you have to first work on changing the mindset, which will take time. And after that, yes.
Actually, it's true. I totally agree with you. You have to work on the mind mapping. I call it mind mapping. It's changing the mindset of the people. It's not about their color, it's not about their culture, but it's about what they can put into the table, right? What value they can add to the company. So it's quite difficult to understand human behavior, right? Because it's like a mathematical equation, whereas people are complex. People can be complex, people can be simple, people can be compound. So it's really difficult for us to understand one way or another, but at least we can try, right? In HR, especially as HR professional, so we try to understand every different culture, diversity, nationalities, behavior. So in doing that, in doing that, we will be able to find a, like what you said a while, at the beginning, right? A common ground, right?
Yes, yes, and you raised a point, Mary. I'll just quickly clarify, give you some, uh, because we had created stereotypes of various countries.
Yes, that is true, right? We are on stereotyping.
Yes, so oh, from India he will be like this, okay? From Philippines, oh, this person will like this, or Singapore or US. I think those stereotypes were valid 20, 30 years ago, okay? But in recent history, there's a lot of migration has happened, okay? And because of that migration, that stereotype, if not gone completely, it's very, very diluted, okay? So as HR folks, I think we need to keep that stereotype away, because that person has learned, he has gone through different countries, and he has really modified himself to the global audience. So
Global, yeah, global.
yeah, saying that Mary coming from Philippines is staying in Cambodia, oh, Philippines, the kind of food they have, by God,
I
now
agree
that's,
with you. Actually, it is. It's true.
yeah,
And I just want to, sorry to cut you off. I just want to share to you a funny story. I was doing an interview by phone, and then the person on the line, he's a foreigner, and asked me, you're a Filipino, right?" And I said yes. And I said, "How did you know?" No, by your accent. And I said, "What do you mean by my accent?" Right? So for me, how can you define a person by the person's accent, right? So
yeah,
I think that is stereotyping, and for me it's a bit offensive.
agreed. Yes. So I think we should see, your brain is a very naughty element of your body, okay? The moment you see a picture, the moment you hear the name of the country, your brain starts making images for decision, okay? So the moment you say Philippines, the brain is working overtime. Filipino, okay, means 1, 2, 3, you have already set, irrespective that Filipino could have studied in US, okay, worked in Japan, and then, because you don't know. And he has no trace of Filipino accent. He has a perfect US accent. You can't decide whether he's a Filipino or is an American. So, as HR Fox, it's our responsibility not to stereotype nationalities and make decisions based on that. Because a lot of migration happened, immigration happened, and like Abhi is in Singapore, if I know correctly, for many years. Okay, he would know how the life is in Singapore, and somebody tells him, "Oh, you are from India on the eastern part because your surname is like this," he will feel offended. What you say? So it is very natural for us to stereotype the nationalities and culture. We should not. I think that would be better off.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that is very good. So as an HR, we should take move away from stereotyping. Otherwise, we cannot make the right decision. So we should not make a critical management decision based on nationality or
Yeah.
based on culture.
Yes.
So it's based on the person's performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone who
Right.
would like to ask Mr. Vishal? So I'm opening now the floor for question and answer. So is there anyone who would like to ask? So you are free to raise your hand, or if you want to share your experiences as well, having worked in different countries, work with different nationalities, you are free to do so. So please raise your hand, use our reaction button. So whoever would like to share something,
Yeah,
so please.
Mary, I would like to share one thing. Like Vishal, and you were absolutely right that mindset is the thing that we need to change. That's what I feel in my last 11 years of exposure. Like it's not only when the talk of global culture comes, but also in any organization. If people mindset is like that, that I'm not going to accept a person from that university or that local area or that complexion or that gender, blah blah blah, then this thing will remain in every context, global or local. This thing will remain. So having the correct mindset is, I think, is important. That what I've learned. Right. Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Mr. Tabsir. Mr. Tabsir is actually from Bangladesh, and he's been with AsiaHRM for quite some time now. And thank you. He's been joining our session every time, right, Mr. Tabsir? I've been meeting him
Thank you.
every
Yes.
session. Yeah. So is there anyone
Yeah, I've
else?
been
Okay.
trying to also.
Yeah. So I saw Unita.
Yes,
So
please.
Hi.
Unita is raising her hand. Unita, could you please introduce yourself? Could you share us a little bit background about you?
Okay. I'm Yunita. I'm from Indonesia. I'm a human resources in one multinational companies based in Spain. So basically, that's why it leads to my question. Um, we don't have a lot of expat in our company, but in the end, we our expat tend to find in it was the opposite of what you were discussing. Actually, my question is more about how us as an HR help our expat to adjust, because in the end, the problem that we often encounter is how expat from European stands, or another country, I'm not sure, but at least the one that I have experienced is the European expat discuss what is Indonesian cultures, and they form their judgment of the culture. So there's a race barriers, there are a lot of barriers, and then it made their adaptation is longer and more difficult, especially because most of expats is in the leading position. Thus, then it caused a lot of problem in how they work, despite the way we have a cultures of the companies that try to regulate them. So, what can we do as HR?
Right. So, Unita, what I'm assuming is you have done few things, right, to make your
Mm-hmm.
expat uh, understand that what is Indonesian culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you
That's
have
true.
done some work, and possibly this work has resulted into some better
Mm-hmm.
understanding as far as your experts are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
However, the
Mm-hmm.
I see still there are certain distance to cover. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, first of all, please understand when you are trying to settling in those experts. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the way they view you, you are also viewing them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you are
Mm-hmm.
also creating a perception for them the way they create a perception for you.
Mm-hmm.
uh, okay, so begin with that. And the second thing is, Unita, it's a long term process. Okay, but I would suggest some of the salient features of Indonesian culture. Okay, and some of the salient features, let's say somebody comes from Spain. Okay, if you can prepare and show them to those expats that this is how things happen in your country, this is how happens in my country, and don't ever make the mistake of saying that you start doing the things Indonesian way. Okay, forget what you do in Spain. Don't ever make that statement. Okay, why I'm saying is, if you become so ambitious, okay, the person will go berserk. Okay, so it is good to arrive at differences between, let's say, Spain and Indonesia. Okay, you clarify those differences and tell them that these differences will be there. It's not, they are not going away. Okay, but we need to settle for the minimum program. Okay, where you will behave and the way we will behave. Otherwise, success will not come to you. I think that way you should clarify.
And
Okay then. Mm-hmm.
another thing I think what I can advise you to do is come up with a culture orientation. Okay, So in providing them a culture orientation, so they would know exactly what are the expected behaviors, right? Because like for example, in Cambodia, okay, in one of the companies where I work to, so we do a culture orientation, whereas we hire expert from different countries, bring them to Cambodia, and then present them the culture of Cambodia. This is how we do things here in Cambodia. So we're not asking you to follow it, to embrace it, or to change your culture and become engage in Cambodian culture, but having the knowledge, right, of what the culture here is, you will be able to adapt yourself, right, and not insist on, no, we don't do that, we do this, right? So make it as a part of your orientation program, where you can set up a culture orientation.
All right then. Thank you.
So, Mary, we have one more question which came towards the beginning. If I can just read it out, saying, being, in this overall, experience, and engaged in leading positions in this multinational company, what are the challenges you faced managing a cross-cultural team, and any instance of how you got through those challenges? It came from Jakir. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jakir.
yeah, Jakib. I think fantastic question, and I shared one example. What happened to me? Also, in terms of decision making, okay, I had to learn this. If I tell my team, let's do this, okay, it will be done. But what happens is, being in India, I was, or in other culture also, that somebody will go extra mile, okay, not stop at what I have just said or told, okay, and move ahead, take some initiative. I realize acceptance of a boss is so important to move ahead, okay, and coupled with that, they don't want to lose face, okay. That is something which I had to learn, that I cannot penalize my team because they have not gone extra mile, okay, in terms of the decision making. And third, which I learned is, people say sorry or apologize, okay. In some culture, apologizing is a reflection of remorse, okay, is not the admission of guilt. It's not the admission of guilt. But in Thailand, saying sorry means they have admitted in their mind that they are guilty, okay, and which is a very painful process internally, okay. And make it, if it is in a team setting and they have to say sorry, imagine the kind of pressure they are going through. So I had to learn this, that if I'm expecting an apology from somebody, it has to be one to one. I will stop, okay. And initially my frustration levels were running very high, because I thought I will run at a speed of 100 kilometers an hour. But this culture, my office culture, was dragging me behind, and I was not able to run at 100 kilometers an hour. But the beauty is, being in human resources and experiencing other cultures, I had to change myself and pretty fast. Now both of us are running very fast. It is not 100, but it is not this slow, right? So we are running very fast now.
It's true. So is there any thank you, Mr. Vishal. Is there any question? So anyone would like to ask? Oh, I would like to welcome Miss Rita. Miss
Hi,
Rita
Rita.
is with
Is
us
this
now.
Rita? Can you
Hi,
unmute
Rita.
You're on
yourself?
mute. Miss Rita, you're on mute.
Good afternoon to every one of you. I've been listening to the session, and actually I've learned a lot from it. While I was listening, I suddenly remember a story that happened in Singapore when I was working there, and I was blessed that I had the chance to work in Singapore 3 years ago. And then one day, one of the at that time, I worked for a French company, okay? And then a few of the Hong Kong people actually were relocated to Singapore, but most of them actually were single, okay? So one day, one of the senior manager, who's a French, talking to me. And at that time, it was around 6:15 p.m. That is the after the official hours. Then he told me that, oh, Rita, you see, he was, actually I was in his room, and then he was looking out of his room, and then just seeing how many people were still in the office, in the main office. And then he told me that, Rita, you see, I have been observing it for some weeks. You know what? Because at that time we just moved from Hong Kong to Singapore for just a few weeks. You see what? I just observed that people in Singapore tend to leave the office timely, while the people in Hong Kong actually spend a few more hours in the office. You know what? We should employ more people from Hong Kong to work here. Then at that time, I told him that, wow, I can't remember his name, but he's a very hardworking guy. He spent long time in the office. So I told him, I told him, oh, I should be happy while I was listening to you, right? Because I'm also from Hong Kong. But I told him that, you know what? Most of the people actually working here are single. And in the nighttime, they don't really have anything to do, assume that. So they rather work maybe a bit longer in the office. Well, the people from Singapore, they have their own family. So I think it's normal for them to leave on time, or maybe, on time for them to
prepare, right?
to go home and then spend time with their family. And also I told him that, you know what? We are not a factory. We don't pay for the hours that they spend in the company, right? We pay for the value.
That is true.
I was listening about this value, on the value that we have contributed to the company. So I told him that, so we should not have high. So we should continue hire more local people in Singapore for the cost issue, right? And but don't get me
because they
wrong.
work long hours, right?
Yeah, I'm from Hong Kong. Of course, I also like seeing Hong Kong people in the office, as long as they can contribute, they can make value, show their value to the company. I still do the same. But that was a very interesting talk with the guy. And then after that, he didn't say anything, because I told him that I think at the end of the day, we have to see the value contributed by the people there, right? And even though they are not in the office, that doesn't mean that they don't work. They might work remotely, and also on an as needed basis, right? So, and I believe
that's smart.
Yeah, that's right.
That's smart.
Yeah. Although we don't see them in the office, doesn't mean that they don't care about the company business. So that has struck me to remember this interesting story. Yeah, that's all I sharing. Yeah.
Rita,
Yeah.
Rita, I would like to ask that person also, like, does he believe in activity or productivity?
As I told you, right? He's spending long hours in the office. He's a workaholic, so he believes in activities more than productivity.
Actually, some nationalities, right? What they expect from employees are, I don't care how many hours you work, even you work for less than hours, as long as you give me the result that I'm looking, right? So it's more on the end result rather than how much effort you put into it, right? So it's more on being work smart, right? You stay in the office until 10 a.m. doesn't mean that you're a hard worker, right? Because if that job can be done in 2 hours and you're been spending 10 hours in the office to do a 2 hour job, then there's something wrong with you, right?
Yeah. So Mary, if I can go next,
yes,
be
please.
here. I think I picked up a few points, but what I realized, in my current job, I'm with the World Bank, and it's truly, and last week I was discussing with someone, and she asked me, why did you join World Bank? And then one of the points out of the 3 points I said was because I was with one multinational company at that point in time, and I'm going to one more. But what I'm excited about is the multicultural environment. It's truly a multicultural organization, right? So the point that I'm driving home is around the orientation. I think I picked up one point saying it's very important for the organization to have these cultural orientation for new joiners. And it also shows how important or how valuable culture, how they value cultural differences. So when I joined the World Bank, there was a 3-day orientation program, and out of that, one full day was about culture. And then the remaining 2 days. So if you see, the remaining 2 days was about new joiners, all how things work, everything. But 1/3 of the time was being dedicated to the cultural orientation, how cultural differences really enhance the delivery or the noble mission that the World Bank has. I could immediately relate to that, because I think that's how organizations can impress upon employees that what is the extent to which they value cultural differences, and how it really adds on to everyone, and how we really mutually respect each other. And there was a specific point around semantics, and that was one thing I wanted Mr. Vishal to maybe share his few thoughts, saying, and I mean, more than sharing, I can immediately relate to the zero and the zero point that you were mentioning,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's such a small thing, right? But
right.
that's the semantics, right? You have to respect even the smallest,
Yes.
aspect. So I think there was one, I don't remember the exact, because it was almost 4.5 years back. But there was some of the small examples, right, that were quoted. But thanks for the sharing. I think great points.
Yes,
And
thank you very much, Avin. So I think we come to our end, okay, of the session today. So we would like to thank everyone who participated. Thank you very much, Mr. Bishal, for giving us a lot of takeaways for this afternoon. Thank you, Miss Rita, for joining us. Thank you, Avin, Foster, to the committee, Carmen, and to all the members of Asia HRM community. So we'll see you next time on our April monthly sharing session. Please do check our Facebook page, our LinkedIn, okay, LinkedIn, and our website, okay. And this afternoon, Avin and Foster will have the book club. Those who are interested, so please write or PM Avin or in the group in Asia HRM. So please do register on the book club, and don't forget to check out the OKR certification sponsored by Asia HRM. So I think
Shall we
we'll say
take a
bye. So can
picture?
we have a last
Marie?
picture?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Avin,
thank
can
you.
you take picture? Everyone,
Would you mind showing your face?
yes, please. So everyone, please open your camera. We're going to take photos. Is everyone ready?
Yeah. Let's wait for, yeah.
Okay, I need to retake my photo. I already took one.
Okay, June, open your camera. Lung, Arpita.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more, one more.
One more. Rico,
One more.
Lung, can you show us your faces?
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mary. Thank you, Rita.
Okay,
Thank you,
Thank you
see you
Avin.
very
next
much.
time.
Thank
Thank
you,
Okay.
you.
everybody.
Thank you,
See you
Jacker.
again
Sorry,
soon. Bye
Jacker
bye.
is
You
here with
take
us
care.
Bye.
also.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.